So, you know the legendary badass action hero of the Resident Evil franchise, Chris Redfield? Well, the internet has found some weird way to convince itself that he's gay for some odd reason. When in reality, all of these fuckwads are projecting and are retards who have never ever played a Resident Evil game. But before we get into it, if you like these type videos and if you agree with anything I say, maybe consider subscribing or supporting me over on Patreon. Before we get into the lies and the delusion that is spreading through the community of fake fans, first I have to say something about Resident Evil Requiem. Now, in my last video I said that I was a massive fan of the game, and in some way it's almost a masterpiece because of what it did with Leon Kennedy's character, and I still hold that belief. But just a couple days ago I finished the Resident Evil 1 remake, and my opinion of RE9 has kinda changed, and I have to say a few things of what I actually think about the game. First of all, I got a ton of comments saying, how the hell did you choose the bad ending first when it literally told you which one to pick? That was my point in the video, that it was so idiotic to include a decision to make when one of the choices was just so obvious. I still chose the bad ending, even though I knew the game really wanted us to do something which didn't really make any sense. You want to retcon the entire franchise, forgive one of the main villains, and go against the word of Leon Kennedy, one of the earliest protagonists in the games.
Any wrong code will do. It'll destroy Opus. Chris, whatever it takes. I can buy you some time.
So in my opinion, that ending and that decision is kind of stupid, and I don't apologize one bit for sticking to the word of Leon Kennedy, and also for not playing into some bullshit retcon that makes no sense. And there's a lot of stuff in RE9 that's kind of like that, which I just kind of glossed over because I still really do like what they did with Leon Kennedy. But the whole grey section of the game, in my opinion, is complete bullshit, nothing like Resident Evil, and a complete disgrace to the franchise. Take this shit back to Outlast or Amnesia or some generic indie horror game. It feels nothing like Resident Evil, and there's just an army of people saying that it was the scariest thing they've ever played. Which leads me into my main point about Chris and the Resident Evil franchise, which after finishing the RE1 remake, not only was it a complete 10 out of 10 masterpiece, but it might be up there for the best game in the entire franchise, because it perfectly balanced elements of survival horror and action. I'm still yet to play the original RE1, which I'm gonna do sometime in the future, but the RE1 remake, in my eyes, is without a doubt the scariest game in the entire franchise. I don't know, big fat zombies and tall women chasing me down in RE9 wasn't really scary, and it felt like something that needed to take a hike back to YouTube horror creepypastas. This is Resident Evil, the zombie horror game, so focus on zombie horror and not massive tall creatures lurking around like something out of a YouTube web series. This new brand of horror is not scary, and it comes from the internet. RE1 is very original, but also pays homage to classic George A. Romero zombie movies. And not just the Romero ones, also the cheesy 80s ones like Demons and the other Italian stuff, which is awesome. Definitely inspired the early Resident Evil, which is the proper Resident Evil in my mind. What I'm trying to say is, after playing that game, I don't really have any time left for a character like Grace, which isn't even on the same level as Chris or Jill in terms of just being a cool character who can kick ass, but also having an actual character arc in terms of writing. Where the hell is Grace's story arc? She starts out a stuttering retard and ends the game still kind of a stuttering retard and still in an office. It's not like after what she went through she changes and is more serious and damaged, or maybe she becomes a badass. No, we don't have any of that, which, don't get me wrong, is a good thing because it doesn't give the game the opportunity to give us some woke feminist badass. But at the same time, it just kind of feels boring and is nothing like a Resident Evil character. Because Jill Valentine, Claire Redfield, Rebecca Chambers, Ada Wong, none of them are feminists and none of them are really woke. All of those characters being able to handle themselves in a fight isn't really politically driven. Instead, it's the fact that those characters are either trained or part of a special police squad, which I'll get back to in a second because it completely disproves the entire argument we're about to see here, which isn't really an argument. It's instead a massive display of mental spastication, which you'll see all the time with these brand new fake RE fans. So Leon Kennedy's for girls, Chris Redfield is somehow gay. If you like Jill Valentine or Claire Redfield, you're a lesbian for some reason. And also, if you like Ada Wong, you're bisexual. People who think like this are a genuine fucking parasite. And all it is projection, because wouldn't you know it, this account is some random gay dude talking about Resident Evil when he doesn't know shit. Ada Wong is for bisexuals, Jill is for lesbians, Chris is gay. No, Chris is the badass action hero man, Jill is the badass girl that girls can like and dudes can also love, and Ada Wong is the hot femme fatale designed for men. Not whatever weird gay handicapped fantasy you have made up in your head, you mental retard. Resident Evil is not for people obsessed with the sexuality of certain characters. And this is getting destroyed by people saying that we should throw these K-pop breed of brand new fans into septic tanks. And there's one slip up in that tweet because these people aren't Resident Evil fans. In fact, they openly admit to just not playing the games. None of the originals, not part 4, not part 5, not part 6. They don't care one bit. Instead, they play the remakes, which made it accessible towards normies, and then act as if they're super fans. Telling the real fans what their favorite character's sexuality really is, and calling somebody like Chris fucking Redfield gay for some reason. Who's next on the chopping block of these gay freaks? Master Chief or Solid Snake? Are you gonna tell me any of those characters are gay? Because they're not. Neither is Chris Redfield or Leon Kennedy or Jill Valentine or Claire or Ada Wong. Because if they were, nobody would have bought the games. Because they don't want to see any of that shit in a video game designed to entertain. And if you wanted to know the basis for all of this evidence against Chris Redfield being gay, the massive argument with the massive amounts of evidence, there is none. It's just complete bullshit. And spans from retarded people all across the internet who are brain dead morons. You think they're joking and then you realize they're actually being serious. Like this channel, I just got recommended this video the other day saying, is Chris Redfield gay? I thought it was a joke. I turned it on to see that whoever's making this video is a handicap who deserves a right hook to their gay face. And in the same channel, there's also videos saying, is Leon bi? No, he isn't, you fucking handicap. And I just watched 2 seconds of the video to see the evidence, and as I said earlier, there is none. It's just speculation saying that, oh, because Chris Redfield never is really saying pickup lines and running after women, he could definitely be gay. That is not one bit of evidence. If you took that argument and applied it to other characters, it would make no sense. And I'm not gonna go game by game, scene by scene, trying to convince you otherwise, because anybody with a brain knows that Chris Redfield is not gay. In Resident Evil 1, Chris Redfield is a complete badass, but also a grounded survival horror character. And you definitely feel that through the game, because as I said earlier, it's the scariest game in the entire franchise, due to how dark and disturbing the game really does go. And Chris has to face all of that and just keep on going. And by God, that's what he does, because after seeing some of the worst stuff known to man, he still finds a way to say one-liners, blow up the final boss with a rocket launcher, and destroy the entire mansion once and for all. But he knows that that's not enough, and that's where this comes from with his character. This persona of Chris Redfield not really being interested in women or making friends or making jokes. It comes from the fact that the nightmare that he went through in part 1 was just too much for somebody to handle. Any normal person would have broken underneath that pressure, but Chris isn't any normal person. In fact, it's the opposite. The dude is a complete badass and a member of STARS, which means he doesn't have time to cry about what he went through. Instead, he just has to focus on trying to stop the virus and the people behind it once and for all. And that's shown in the ending cutscene of part 1, where him and Jill are in the helicopter. He doesn't have time to turn around and say some pickup line, because even though he escapes the nightmare, he knows deep down that it's not truly over. It's excellent writing. Chris Redfield is an awesome character, and some people just want to ignore all of that. If you read the files in the police station of the original Resident Evil 2, you see that Chris Redfield is on a mission to take down Umbrella once and for all. And the same goes for part 5. He's on a mission. He doesn't have time to do anything else. So you can forgive the man for not making jokes or trying to get a girlfriend when he's literally trying to save the world and take down the evil sons of bitches behind Umbrella. He's one of the most badass characters of all time for that exact reason, but some people think that that qualifies as him being gay. And if you think like that, just go fuck yourself and go play a different franchise. I could do a full video on RE1 Remake because after playing it, it really did open up my eyes to how badass the entire franchise was, how great the writing is, and how all of the original games are connected because they actually had some awesome people behind these games. Resident Evil 1 is also one of my favorite games ever made because it's like an OVA anime from the 80s. And not that it's needed, but another piece of evidence as to why Chris Redfield was never gay is the awesome concept art and character design of the original Resident Evil. Jill Valentine is exactly like a chick you'd see in an 80s anime or manga, just like Ghost in the Shell or Angel Cop. And the exact same thing kind of goes for Chris Redfield, because although you might have an image in your head, was this cigarette smoking action hero badass similar to Solid Snake. Hell, he was originally even supposed to have a bandana. And because of some character changes and censorship, some people now think it's alright to call the character gay, which is so ironic because in the original games and concept art, Chris Redfield is such a badass masculine character that it would be impossible for him to be gay. But these leeches will always have a contradiction and think the exact opposite of common sense. Let me just use a similar franchise just for an example. In Metal Gear Solid 1, Solid Snake is very clearly straight. The dude is just an awesome action hero who's trying to use pickup lines on every single chick in the game, and in the ending rides off into the sunset with Meryl. So you could never ever call him gay. But just like Chris Redfield, when MGS2 rolls around, he has a mission to complete, and that means that he has no time for pickup lines or jokes. It's not that he's gay, it's not that he's a libtard and he relates to your weird ideology in some way. No, Solid Snake realized he needed to take down Metal Gear and he didn't really have time to engage in some romantic comedy bullshit. And the exact same thing goes for Chris Redfield. Even Leon, the guy who says pickup lines and one-liners, still at the end of part 4 doesn't take Ashley up on her offer because the dude has a mission to complete. He's way too busy. So just because Leon has a mission to complete, just like Chris and Solid Snake, does that make any of those characters gay? Fuck no. And if you think like that, you're completely retarded. And any real fan out there knows all of this. It's common sense. So if you're going around making YouTube videos asking these questions and making tweets telling the real fans the sexuality of these characters that people have been playing as before you were even born, then you're a pathetic woke parasite piece of shit that needs to go back to pride parades, mental illness, and whatever the fuck it is you actually do with your life. So if you're a real fan of the franchise and if you agreed with anything I said in this video, do let me know and maybe consider subscribing. And if you're one of those fake fan tourist retards, go fuck yourself. Dynamite.